I'd rather have a fish supper. Well, eventually I left primary school and went to secondary school, and that was a bit of an adventure. I repeated third year. But anyway, when I was about to enter my final year, that was very interesting indeed, because I contracted appendicitis just before the year started, and I spent some time in hospital having my appendix taken out. And I was in a room in the hospital with two men who were much older than me. We were both 72 and I was 18. And there was one conversation that we had that still remains with me. The two men were called Bill Hanna and Bill Fail, both called Bill. And we got round to talking about spiritual things, and Bill Hanna made this statement: Jesus Christ was either the biggest colossal liar who ever existed, or he told the simple truth. And that is a question that confronts all of us. Was Jesus Christ a great big liar, or did he tell the truth about himself? And then Bill Fail added to the conversation by saying, only believe, he said. Only believe. And that's what the Bible does say. And that's stayed with me. And so I ask you these questions. Do you believe in Jesus Christ? Not just historically, but do you trust in him? And as I say, that stuck with me. Well, I went back to school and I got through it. And eventually I left school and I had no job to go to. But eventually I got a job in the co-op. And it was at the co-op, when I was working there, that I first came across the saying, I'd rather have a fish supper. But anyway, during that time, the church I was going to, the Congregational Church, was in a state of collapse, and it was going to amalgamate with another Congregational church, and I was just sick of the whole thing. The way of life I had was changing, and I just couldn't cope with it, and I decided I've had enough of church. I don't want to have anything to do with it, and I'm not going with them. But my mum said to me, well, if you're not going to come to this church, you need to go to another one. And I thought, how am I going to keep them quiet? So I came up with a plan. I decided to go to all the churches in the town, and eventually I'd get so sick of this, and eventually I'd get to stop going to church. That was the plan. God had a different plan. God had a plan that was much better for me. You see, I decided on that very first Sunday that I was going to go to the first of many churches. And just as I was leaving to go to this church, I said to God, I've never heard impressive preaching in my life. And that's not likely to happen, is it? Well, I was up on the balcony and I was gripped by the preaching. And as I came down the stairs from that balcony, I said to God, oh God, I must admit that was impressive. The minister stopped me at the door, introduced himself, introduced 3 other people to me, and I decided to go a second time, just as gripped with the preaching. Went a third time, still gripped with the preaching. And I remained with the church. And I built up a relationship with that minister that lasted many, many years. And I learned from him how to preach myself. He made me do it. And then after that, he kept on asking me to do it. So I have him to thank as God's instrument for me discovering my gift of teaching. And far from giving up church, I got involved. I became gripped by God's word myself, and still am. And God's plan was, I am going to take you away from the liberalism, and I'm going to put you in a church that will teach you. And I also learned about prayer, because I heard the announcements about the prayer meeting. I'd never been to one in my life. I went to it and I discovered that everything emanated from the prayer meeting from that. Not only what God was doing, but also the fellowship. I built up fellowship with people much older than me. Bear in mind, I was only 17. And I treasure those relationships even now that they're long gone. I learned from older people. And youngsters need to learn to respect older Christians who walk with God for a long time. Anyway, that was my real start in church. And we'll come to the third chapter of I'd Rather Have a Fish Supper.